Coming to you from the studios of AM 950 KTNF, the progressive voice of Minnesota. Welcome to the Gailey Show, also streaming right now on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/@the Gailey Show. I'm your host, John Parker, executive producer, Jim Pounce, here with me in the studio.
Hey, everyone.
All right, so it is Friday, which is culture and entertainment. And what is, because we deserve this.
Boy, do we ever.
At the end of the week. Let's have something to recharge our batteries for the weekend.
Right.
We have two reviews of television shows for you today. Hulu's Mid-Century Modern and Netflix's Cassandra. Jim and I were also recently at the Triassic Parq, a production of Minneapolis Musical Theater, as well as Walking Shadows production of Witch. So we're going to be talking about those two shows as well in the second half of the program today. So let's start with Hulu's Mid-Century Modern. This just came out. It is a comedy series, just came out on March 28th. Interestingly, Hulu dropped all 10 episodes all at once, so none of this nonsense of dripped content. It stars Nathan Lane, Matt Bomer, Nathan Lee Graham, and Linda Lavin, the late, great Linda Lavin. So the show description: after an unexpected death, three best friends, gay gentlemen of a certain age, decide to spend their golden years living together in Palm Springs, where the wealthiest one is currently living with his mother. That's Nathan Lane, the wealthiest one. Mother is Linda Lavin. We are reviewing the pilot episode. The series is created by David Cohan and Max Muchnick of Will and Grace fame. James Burrows directs all 10 episodes. Burrows is known for directing, classics Cheers, Frasier, Taxi, also Will and Grace. Fun fact, didn't know this researching the show. According to IMDb, James Burrows has been nominated for an Emmy for directing a comedy episode 24 times in 26 years. That is one nomination every year since 1980, excluding 1997 and 2004. He has won the prize directing 5 times.
One of the greats. I mean,
one of the absolute greats. So very lovely to have him helming Mid-Century Modern. And I thought it was going to be a series more a la Modern Family.
Oh.
Not in front of a studio audience. So when we started watching and it was a sitcom in front of a studio audience, I was surprised because I didn't realize that that's what it was going to be. I had kept hearing over and over again that it was going to be, a gay version of Golden Girls.
Is it in front of a studio audience or is it just a laugh track? I don't actually know.
Oh.
I didn't have the impression it was a studio audience, but I could be completely wrong.
Well, it better be if they are. A laugh track will be really...
Well, I don't know. I mean, and it doesn't so much matter, but I had not thought of that before. I think what the way it's been positioned is this is a gay Golden Girls, which I think is misleading.
Yeah.
Actually, I think they do it.
It is shot in front of a live studio audience.
Okay. I think they are saying that because these days, if you have a piece of known intellectual property, people go, "Oh, I have some idea what that's about," and they're more likely, people believe, to want to watch it. I disagree with that completely because I like original things, but in any event.
Well, something that I wasn't expecting, because I haven't watched a sitcom in forever. I'm of the Good Place, Parks and Recreation, type of, single camera comedy series.
Yep.
I forgot how much I like 90s, 80s sitcoms.
Yeah.
This is the show that if the networks had been brave enough, we would have had in 1992. Right. It would have been a campaign. NBC could have aired this right after Golden Girls, either, right. When Golden Girls was still on the air, or right. Instead of the Golden Palace, which was the sequel, that only made it one season after the Golden Girls, they could have aired this instead. It is so on point that it made me just very reminiscent of those sitcoms of the 80s and the 90s.
It's very interesting to be my age and watch somebody considerably younger go through a nostalgia moment. You know what I mean? Where they're like, I remember when I used to watch that kind of television. So I agree with you. There was something amazing about watching all of those conventions of a sitcom with James Burrows directing. It was like, wow, this is today's, sort of throwback or
Yeah.
acknowledgement to that style. So it isn't enough to just say it's a comedy. It is very much in the style of those 80s and 90s comedies.
It really is. The punchlines, the setups. I mean, it. And the weird thing though is that, or not a weird thing, in my review of the show is that while it is a sitcom, it does still feel fresh, and I still feel like I'm watching a 21st century version of a sitcom.
Yes.
So I like how they are playing with the genre itself in terms of the writing. I think the acting performances evoke the 1990s style of acting, but very clearly just by virtue of the content that they're dealing with, right? We have 3 out gay men who are there's just so much happening today that it's impossible to the way that we live as human beings in the United States today is so radically different than the way that we did in the 90s, particularly out gay men, that it is impossible to sort of, mimic what was happening there. I feel like they are challenging the tropes of at least in the pilot,
Yep.
the tropes of the 80s and 90s sitcom,
Yep.
which still makes it feel like it is a fresh take. And I think that this is the sitcom that Nathan Lane should have had in the 90s. Again, if the networks had been brave and creating programming that was representative of the United States of America.
If there was ever a person born to do a sitcom with that
Nathan Lane
camp character and sense of humor and delivery and timing, which is impeccable, line after line after line. I mean,
yes.
he is so in his groove, and he seems so comfortable doing that, regardless, even if it's at his own expense. He's just hilarious, I think.
And I think that Matt Bomer, we are used to seeing him in roles where he's, in White Collar, he's the slick art heist, working with the cops to solve crimes. In Fellow Travelers, amazing limited series about the Lavender Scare, he is working for the foreign secretary. We're not in the UK here. The Secretary of State. And so he's very, you see the wheels turning. He's very calculating, very smart, and very shrewd. And so it's really interesting to see him here in this role playing the himbo ditz. Himbo being, bimbo, but, hey, with an H. And at first I was like, really? Do I like this? And by the end of the episode, he really sold me on this character. And I'm really looking forward to seeing how he plays with it over the rest of the season.
I'm going to say this about Matt Bomer in the pilot, like you're saying, because I think I'll like him better. I'm going to say this about Matt Bomer. I thought Nathan Lee Graham was fantastic.
We're going to get to Nathan.
Did you notice I didn't say anything about Matt Bomer? I thought he was miscast in that pilot. I think he's such a good actor, and this is the kind of role you would cast somebody. Typically, in the 80s, you'd cast some dumb actor, right, who would credibly be dumb and sort of always missing the point. It just broke my heart to watch Matt Bomer doing that. But I think there's going to be more to it than we saw.
I think that there are folks who want to continue to make the comparisons to Golden Girls. I would actually compare Matt Bomer's character to Woody Harrelson's character in Cheers.
Oh,
the sort of lovable,
big heart,
yep. There for you,
yep.
But kind of slow on the uptake, or makes references, that you're just like,
Right.
So we'll see how it goes there. But let's get to Nathan Lee Graham. Nathan Lee Graham slays, on point,
yep.
Delivery executed brilliantly, doesn't miss a beat. Excellent.
The kind of person
10 out of 10, no notes.
The person who can deliver a passionate, sincere, emotional speech and then a laugh line at the end. I mean, that's the confidence. I didn't know him, and I thought, oh no, here's this no name. boy, was I wrong. This
Oh
guy
my
is,
gosh, how did you not know
well, I don't know.
Nathan Lee
I
Grant?
just didn't know him personally, and I have an expectation, and you're right, he slayed. And I thought he was every bit everybody else's match, no question.
When I was, again, for folks who are tuning in for the first time, I trained as an actor when I first went to school in Los Angeles and the UK. And when I was in the UK, they focused a lot on vocal work. Nathan Lee Graham's vocal work is so on point in this. Just the range of notes that he uses, the emphatic when he needs to be emphatic, the gentleness where you think this is a character who, oh, I probably can't say this on the air. The word starts with a B and ends with E, not E, the letter Y. Benchy. I can say benchy.
Benchy.
This character is very benchy.
Yes.
But is also just some really lovely, soft moments. And he really captures that. Obviously, TV is a visual medium. What was resonating for me in his performance was the vocal delivery and how the gentleness, where he's particularly caught off guard in moments of honesty and true emotional rawness, was just really lovely here. So
and the smartest person in the room, which I loved. I got to the point where I stopped looking at everybody else. I looked at him to say, how's this going? Where is it going? He kind of became the B. Arthur character for me. I don't know who he's really supposed to be, but I felt like I'm going to watch him because he knows what's going on.
I started thinking that at the beginning of the series, watching the episode, like who's who, and then I was like, okay, you know what? I don't even care because it evokes. I don't even know if it evokes the Golden Girls, but I feel like it's its own show.
Yeah, I agree.
And I want to talk about Linda Lavin, but we're coming up here on a commercial break. So you can check out Mid-Century Modern. It is available on Hulu. You can do all the subscriptions there. There's like the Disney Plus Hulu bundle that you can get. That's what we did, which I think at the time was a promo. Like you get both streaming services for like $9.99. I don't know what the current deal is right now, but it is available on Hulu, and all 10 episodes are available.
And it's 90% on Rotten Tomatoes.
There you go. What will we give it, though? That you'll find out after this commercial break. Please stay tuned to us on Blue Sky. We're at thegaleyshow.org on Blue Sky. We do ticket giveaways on there. And we had tickets they were giving away earlier this week for a show at the Fillmore this weekend. So tune in to us there, and also for more progressive news and analysis. We'll be right back. Welcome back to The Daily Show. I'm your host, John Parker, executive producer Jim Pounds in studio with me. We're reviewing Hulu's Mid-Century Modern. I gotta say, every time I hear that music, it always throws back to the music that used to open the Stephanie Miller Show.
I just was thinking,
few years ago.
Is that Stephanie's theme?
Well, it hasn't been Stephanie's theme for a really long time.
Okay.
It was in the days before the hellscape that we're currently living through, or the first version of it in 2016.
Got it.
When she, I think, switched to the Katy Perry song "Fighter."
So what would you? Oh, sorry.
We're not giving our reviews yet, because the next character I want to talk about is Linda Lavin.
Yes.
Icon. Yes. Of the stage and screen.
Yes.
And Linda Lavin passed away around Christmas time. Had almost filmed all of the episodes for the series.
Yes.
And so that going in, that she's, the character is not going to make it to the end of the season. And then there's all these jokes about her character living forever, or when is she going to die? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so there's these age jokes, and they just land differently. And I know that they couldn't go back in and obviously reshoot the entire series and rewrite it, knowing that her character is going to pass away. We don't know. Again, we're basing this review off of the pilot episode, so obviously we don't know where this is going to end up.
Right.
But it was hard to watch in a, knowing that what's about to happen. It was very sad.
Yeah.
And I'll be curious to see how they do handle it knowing that it's coming forward. And I don't know if it's too soon. If Hulu, if they pick it up again for a second season, if they are going to recast the role, or if they'll bring in somebody else's mother to join the household. But it also very sad because she's very good
I thought Nathan Lane could play both parts. That would be one
in drag.
except you can't do it in a live audience. But
I have no idea. Because how would he do his scenes with his mom?
well, I'm saying you could.
Oh,
if
like
it
if
was,
they were twins, you
it
could
was
just shoot it that
filmed,
way. Yeah,
yeah,
like how they shoot
but
twins.
not with a live audience.
But yeah, it was sad to watch those scenes because you're appreciating what a just treasure Linda Lavin was as a performer and what she's bringing to the show, and how tragic it is that we lost her.
I think a lot of actors, though, would want to die on the stage kind of thing. And bless her, God bless her, she did. You know what I mean? She went right up to the end, and you can't really ask for a better exit than that, I think.
Yeah. So we'll see how it plays out. I am giving the series 4 out of 5 stars, only because I don't know how it ends. So maybe I'll amend it. We'll come back when the series is over, and I will give it my final review. But for right now, I'm giving it 4 out of 5.
I'm going to give it 3.5, but I'm optimistic. I think you're right. I think I'll like it better as it goes.
That's the thing about sitcoms and comedies, though, is that I feel like they have a different lifespan.
Yes.
When you watch a series like Schitt's Creek, when you watch them over their seasons, they really find their groove around season 3.
Yes.
And so that I feel like sitcoms need to be given that breath to find their stride, to see who they are before you give a final verdict on a series. So for right now, already ahead of the game, I guess you could say, with 4 out of 5 stars from me, 3.5 stars from Jim. All right, our next series is legitimately one of the most creepy series I have watched in a very long time. It is Cassandra. It is a German TV series that released on February 6th on Netflix. All 6 episodes are available now. Here is the show description. Germany's oldest smart home awakens its AI, artificial intelligence helper, Cassandra, after decades when a new family moves in. Cassandra, determined never to be abandoned again, begins to manipulate events using the home's resources in her attempt to become part of the family. It stars Franz Hartwig, who you may know from the other queer series, German series, Boom Boom Bruno. That show is a lot because the Bruno character is toxic masculinity to the 10th degree, but has an absolutely gentle queer storyline in there, because one of the officers that is Bruno has to be a mentor towards is gay and a drag queen and a good foil to Bruno. Anyway, also, if you've seen this series Dark, which is also on Netflix, Franz Hartwig is on that as well. Lavinia Wilson stars as Cassandra. Interesting performance, because we meet Cassandra as just an AI helper. You're thinking, a la Alexa, or if you could have a visual Siri. That's so you see this sort of digital version on all the screens. There are screens in literally every single room in the house where she can show up and be talked to and talk to you, fully consciousness having. And then there is a robot as well that can move around, and the arms of the robot have think of a blender, one of those electric mixers where you can take the arms out and put in, different arms. It's the same thing here. You can put in a knife, hint, hint. You can put in, actual mixer blades. You can put in all sorts of different things that she has in the kitchen that she can use as her arms. And she can mow the lawn because, she of this robot. She can, clean, etc. Then you actually get to learn, and this isn't giving away any spoilers, that the AI is based off of an actual person named Cassandra who used to live in the house. So you begin to get her backstory. Now, we're only going to give you the reviews based off of the first 3 episodes. So we don't actually know right now how it ends. So we don't know how it all comes together, of how the AI in the house was actually modeled after her, what led to that. But I already did not like the idea of having some consciousness staring at you and constantly able to monitor you. Like, I guess technically we have that with our phones, where there's software that they can just turn on the phone and listen to everything that's going on. They can turn on the camera and they can watch you, and that is super creepy. But you don't think of that on a day-to-day basis, right? You're just not. It's not the same as having a TV screen in your bedroom or in your bathroom where that person can see everything. And clearly Cassandra has a consciousness as they're talking to her, as the kids are talking to her, as the parents are talking to her. You can very clearly understand that she does have free will, though some people are willing to believe that more so than others. So the mom clearly believes that Cassandra has free will and is manipulating things in the household. Others, not so much. Particularly the father is, for whatever reason, and that's one of the things I didn't like about the writing, is they don't really fully explain, at least in the first 3 episodes, why he is so willing to constantly give this AI the benefit of the doubt and basically gaslights his wife into thinking everything's fine. We're going to have more about this series because there's a lot to talk about in terms of the creepiness of it when we come back. Be sure to support our sponsors and advertisers that you hear in this upcoming break. They keep conversations like this possible on The Gailey Show. Broadcasting from the studios of AM 950 KTNF, the progressive voice of Minnesota. Welcome back to The Gailey Show. I'm your host, John Parker. Executive producer Jim Pounds and I are reviewing 2 TV series today. We're currently on Netflix's Cassandra. All 6 episodes are available. Came out on February 6th. The show gets creepier as you go along when you see Cassandra, the AI in the house, lock the wife in the closet after she finds out that the wife is claustrophobic. She starts a fire when the wife finds a what are those things called? The photo slides and the little machine that projects it onto the wall.
Oh, a slideshow?
A slideshow, yeah. I guess, like one of those old school slideshows. Mm-hmm. And that's what she realizes, that Cassandra was a real person. And Cassandra doesn't like that or doesn't want to be reminded of those memories. And so she causes the electricity to spark, to overload the machine itself, and starts a fire, which also is kind of like, how she can literally blow up machines.
Well, don't give away all the plot details.
Well, that's in the first episode. That's literally just the first episode.
So she has
that sets up how creepy this show actually is.
Let's say it this way: she has a pleasant demeanor that becomes less pleasant when you look behind the facade.
Like every morning, she wakes up the whole household at the same time with this. I don't even because the Netflix doesn't translate the lyrics. But it sounds like a very traditional German good morning song, and which is cute at first, and then after a while you're like, this is starting to get creepy.
Yeah.
But you can also see they treat her, the AI, as a character in itself, because the camera cuts away to get reaction shots from her of events that are happening in the various rooms. So you can tell that she's listening in a manipulative way. And I'm not giving anything away because you know right away from the first episode that she is trying to get rid of the wife from the house.
Well, can we, one of the things I want to make sure we talk about and not run out of time is that the reason we're talking about this series is the son is gay and out and accepted by his family. You know, that's usually a trope, and that's not here this time. But he has a young man in school that he's interested in, and it's the young man who's the homophobic one or the
I know.
self-doubting
I
or
mean, this is the thing, is that we know that this still exists.
Of course.
It is still tough to watch it
Yeah, it
in a
is.
TV series, to
It
find
is.
that sort of, self-loathing. At one point there is some, obviously we didn't do our regular data info that we do for all of our shows with Mid-Century Modern. In Mid-Century Modern, there is no violence. There is no current HIV storyline. There is no animal abuse in there. For this show, Cassandra, there is currently no HIV storyline. There is anti-LGBTQ violence in the sense that the two teen boys are kissing. Someone comes into the room, and our guys, our protagonists, want to be boyfriend, punches him in the mouth and says, "Well, what are you doing? Why are you coming on to me?" Right. So there's some violence in that regard. Thus far, there is no animal violence, but again, we haven't watched all of the episodes. But the couple, you see them in the room, and Cassandra is watching them almost have their first kiss, and she interrupts it and tells the kid, "Oh, you got to go home now." The boyfriend, that you got to go home. It's just creepy.
Yeah, I mean, it's a monster who doesn't look anything like a monster, and yet is clearly not human, but clearly has human aspects to their personality. So it's a really interesting take on the evil monster in a monster movie, and it's not clear, because nobody thinks there's anything amiss at first. The wife looks like a lunatic. And of course, we're on her side.
Well,
we know that's not true.
That's the thing about the writing that I am going to ding it for, is that the writers are so wanting you to believe that Cassandra has manipulated everybody against the wife and mother, that they make some writing choices that the characters, you're like, the characters would not do that in 2025. Like, that is just not something that they would do. Also, we are too embedded with technology that it seems weird to me that they wouldn't have tried to find like a manual or put some guardrails on what the AI can and cannot do, particularly when you have the youngest child who's in 3rd grade, I believe, or definitely in that elementary school age. So there's some things there. There's some very clear, the husband is like full on gaslighting his wife, and they make it seem like the wife has some behavioral health issues, because prior to the episode starting, her sister did die of suicide because of her own diagnoses, and that she wasn't taking her medication.
But that's classic horror film, and horror films are notorious for having the characters do entirely self-destructive things out of ignorance,
but
I guess.
It needs
and
to be plausible.
But that ratchets up the tension. Why did they do that? That's crazy. Why didn't they run for their lives?
I'm not disagreeing, but it still needs to be Yes, there is a suspension of disbelief that needs to happen when you're watching a creepy horror film, but the decisions cannot be so egregious that you find yourself sort of stepping out of it and going, okay, no, there is no way that someone would be saying that right now. There is no way that someone would make that choice right now.
But I do appreciate that we have this gay love story, this conflicted young gay love story, which is like beside the point, because the conflict is really something else. So it's happening over
Cassandra
here in a corner.
Cassandra does not like the boyfriend.
And she doesn't. So she's a homophobic robot.
And it's weird because it comes across as she's being protective of our guy, but then very clearly you can see, as episode 1 and 2 and 3 go along, that she's actually trying to separate the family from everybody.
Right.
And it's creepy.
It's if John starts having nightmares, I'll send him over to somebody else's house for the night. But I can tell it's getting in his gray matter. So
particularly when I start, talking to the TV screen.
I'm going to give this the same 3.5. I'm kind of being weak and just always giving the same rating, but I feel like I'm either going to like it more or less as it goes along. So 3.5 is where I am at the moment.
I am also going to give it 3.5. I was going to give it 4, but there are just some choices the characters make, which are the result of some writerly decisions that just pull you out of it so quickly that you're like, wait a minute, no. And then you have to find yourself working your way back into the series. So that's why I'm going to give it 3.5 out of 4 stars. I don't know if there's going to be a second season. Obviously, we haven't watched it to the end. So my anticipation is that it is a limited series. So that will be my final rating for it. Unlike the sitcom, sitcoms are different. This is a limited series, I believe. So my final rating is going to be 3.5 out of 5 stars.
I can't imagine that the robot, after killing this family, goes and putters down the driveway to the next.
That was not a spoiler because we don't know if she's going to do that.
But you know what I'm saying? In other words, if it's a horror film, it usually comes to some conclusion.
I wouldn't be surprised if that's where it's going, or if she tries to kill somebody. But I'm also assuming that at some point they're going to try to kill her and power her down. So there's going to be some type of a showdown at the German AI corral, and we'll just have to see what happens. But definitely 3.5 out of 5 stars. This is a series that you could also put into your calendar right now, your AI calendar, to remind you to watch in October, because it would be perfect.
Yes, it would.
The mood is also very evocative of the fall, so that would be a good series to watch. At Halloween time. All right, so we have 2 theatrical productions that we recently got to go and see. One of them I got to go see. You saw both of them, Jim.
Yes.
The first is Minneapolis Musical Theater's Triassic Parq.
Mm-hmm.
And this is currently playing at Lush Lounge and Theater.
Right.
And it is a musical version of Jurassic Park, but told from the perspective of the dinosaurs.
Mm-hmm.
So there are the velociraptors, there is a Tyrannosaurus Rex. There are a couple of others. Jim, what was your thought of this?
This just sounded so outrageous when we had Andrew Newman on the show to talk about it. I thought, well, this is just sit back and have a drink and let it go, and don't expect it to just be a lark. That was what I was expecting. And in fact, it is that. It's big and it's colorful and it's loud and it's whatever, over the top and campy and all whatever adjectives.
Very campy.
But at the same time, it has something to say, and it has a message to deliver, and you do start to care about the characters against your sort of reasonable expectations, and all of a sudden you find yourself kind of invested, and the message gives it some heart that I never expected to see. So I thought it would be one-dimensional, and it ended up being at the very least two-dimensional, and I found it satisfying for that reason, because it surprised me in a positive way.
Well, the description of the show, and we should note that they also say here on the website, it is an adults only show. So if you think, oh, it's a retelling of Jurassic Park, let's bring the kids, please don't.
No, please don't. Not to a bar.
No. But it is a retelling of, the official description is a retelling of the famous dinosaur-themed film. From the dinos' point of view, chaos is unleashed on their not-so-prehistoric world when one dinosaur and a clan of females spontaneously turns male. And you will recall that from the film, the dinosaur DNA was filled in with amphibians' DNA, and there are some amphibians who can change gender depending on their evolutionary procreation needs.
Yes.
And so that is what happens to one of our dinosaurs here in the show. And it really does play with the idea of gender and what it means when you suddenly, how do you perform gender, and what does it mean to now suddenly have a male appendage?
Right.
How does that change who you are? And there's a religious velociraptor who has one interpretation of it, where the religion isn't God religion, it's more the park owners who feed them.
Well,
are
it's
considered like the visitor center is considered the church, if you will,
yeah,
and they're the ones that provide the sacrificial goats,
right.
if you will. Then there is a scientist uh, velociraptor who has escaped or was banished,
Right,
and she has a different take on what's happening in
right.
the world and why there are dinosaurs who are transitioning in their genders. I thought it was great. It runs until April 13th at Lush Lounge and Theater in Northeast Minneapolis. I had the grilled cheese and it was a
Oh,
delight. So if you're there, I highly recommend the grilled cheese because it was very tasty.
I want to say that the notion that these creatures, whatever they happen to be dinosaurs, end up worshiping this, building that has given them the notion of just irrationally praying to something, you've created this whole ethos
Yeah.
around nothing, which is what I believe about organized religion. So you you develop all kinds of stories about it, and you develop all kinds of beliefs about it, and everybody gets bought in on the same nonsense. And then when it starts to come apart, you hear them losing their faith in this nonsense they never should have had faith in at the beginning. I thought that was absolutely brilliant.
Yes, it is a highly, yeah, I recommend. So you can get tickets and more information at aboutmmt.org. We're going to take one final break here. When we come back, we're going to talk about a Walking Shadow's production of Witch, currently at the Illusion. Stay tuned. More to come on The Gailey Show. This is The Gailey Show. I am your host, John Parker. We are talking about some reviews of entertainment that you can go to this weekend. 2 TV shows, Hulu's Mid-Century Modern, Netflix's Cassandra, the Triassic Parq at Lush Lounge and Theater, a production of Minneapolis Musical Theater. And finally today, we're going to talk about Walking Shadow Theater Company's production of Witch, which is at I'm sorry, it's not at the Illusion, it's at the Open Eye Theater.
Yes, that's the mistake I made the other day.
Right. It is written by Jen Silverman, directed by Cody Broad and Amy Rumini. It plays until April 13th. The description: a charming devil arrives in the quiet village of Edmonton to bargain for the souls of its residents in exchange for their darkest wishes. Elizabeth should be his easiest target, having been labeled a witch and cast out by the town, but her soul is not so readily bought. As the devil returns to convince her, and then returns again, unexpected passions flare, alliances are formed, and the village is forever changed. Jim,
this is
your
such
thoughts?
full disclosure, I said this when we had John Heimbuck on the show, the artistic director, or on the Gailey Show. I've done 4 shows with Walking Shadow, 2 with Amy Rumini, who you just mentioned, who's the co-director of this, and 2 with John. So I have a lot of love and affection for Walking Shadow just in and of itself. And one of the things that I think they're known for is the ability to find plays that are worth producing and that not very many people seem to produce for whatever reason, and which strikes me as a perfect show for them. And because it appears to be one thing, on the surface. Oh, there's the devil, and oh, there's the witch, and you're like, okay, I know all these tropes. And then it proceeds to tell a story that is far more complex than that. It's really 2 parallel stories. One, yes, the witch, and he ends up actually being a salesman for the devil, but those 2 characters. And then there's a castle with a lord and a servant and a son of the lord and another, I guess, strapping young man who the lord favors rather than his own son, because his own son, and this is why I'm talking about it on the Gailey Show, is, slight of build. He's an artist. He's doesn't have a girlfriend.
Part of the queer community.
He's, well, at the beginning, he's certainly an other. He's othered. He's othered by his own father. He's othered by people in the town. He's dismissed. He's diminished. He's, just tolerated, but made fun of. Nothing ever gets to your point about, things that might trigger people. It's never terrible the way he's treated, but he's clearly not given the same respect. So these two stories go on in parallel, and they seem to have not a lot to do with each other. And I want to mention Samuel Osborne Huerta as Cuddy, who is the son, the sort of put upon son who keeps trying to do the right thing and keeps thinking, wow, I can't catch a break. Nobody gives me the benefit of the doubt. Nobody appreciates me for who I am. Can't all of us LGBTQ people appreciate and respond to that? So that's who my attention went to, because I'm like, yeah, brother, speak. Now, I'm sorry. Samuel uses they, them pronouns, so I should use those. I'm sorry. And so this was fascinating, this character. And the performance was really stellar. It was physical. It was cerebral. It changed with nuance, and it got to the point where I watched them constantly because I was always curious to see how they were reacting to all of these other characters. The other characters were a little more stock and a little more predictable, and they were always a surprise. Every scene was a surprise. So it became a character study for me. And then the playwrights rather brilliantly brought these two parallel stories. They were in the same place and at the same time, but brought them together into a pretty shattering conclusion. There's a couple of rather shattering moments that you just had to appreciate the intellect needed to write something like that, and the intellect needed to direct something like that, and the intellect needed to act something like that. And it was all there. It was, I don't know if it was satisfying, except that I truly, truly appreciated it. The house was nearly full. There were only about a half dozen empty seats. So it's something that I would highly recommend.
Well, there you go. Two options for folks in the Twin Cities to go to. You can go to Triassic Parq, get some good food, some beverages, and laugh. And trust me, folks, we're laughing. It is a hoot of a show with really good food available. And then here you've got which is, as you said, what was the word you're using? Shattering.
That's the only way. I wasn't depressed at the end. I was intellectually and emotionally struck. Let's say that. And I've thought about it a lot the last couple of days, and I'm still thinking about it. And I love it when a play can do that. And we've got two other gay shows kind of coming up that we've been talking to people about, and those are going to be in April. So it's a nice time to see a lot of LGBT representation on local stages.
Definitely it is. You were saying also in the program that they had picked this show prior to the election, so they didn't know how it wasn't a commentary on the state of the world, what they were expecting it to be, but it obviously the play lands differently given the political moment.
I think it was about the state of the world in a general way, but suddenly it becomes so specific,
right?
Like unbelievably specific. And so, yeah, it was quite something. Fortuitous.
Well, there you go. Which at Walking Shadow Theater Company's production at Open Eye Theater. You can go walkingshadow.org for more information and to buy your tickets. That is our show for today. Be sure to tune in tomorrow starting at 2 p.m. a best of The Gaily Show, followed by Twin Cities Pride Amplified. After that, The Illegal Trans Woman with Ellie Krug. And then after that, closing out our afternoon programming of Pride on AM 950, The Downright Upright Show with Philip Anthony. Have a great weekend, everybody. Until next Monday at 2 p.m., keep it queer, America.
Keep it queer.